Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to AZMR on Zed Digital. I'd like to start by acknowledging that this show was created on the stolen lands of the Jagera and Turrbal peoples. I pay respects to their elders, past and present, and I acknowledge that sovereignty over this land was not ceded. It was never ceded. It was never ceded. We are on stolen land. Thank you for tuning in tonight to AZMR on Zed Digital, episode number 32. Episode number 32. My name is Polly, and I'm going to be with you for the next 2 hours for some low sensory and ASMR radio. If you would like to catch up on previous episodes, you can head to the 4ZZZ on demand service at 4ZZZ.org.au/program/AZZMR. You can catch the last 6 episodes there, including the 24T reviews episode number 30, where I reviewed every tea from my advent calendar every day for the month of December until Christmas. So that was a cute time, and honestly, that episode is a bit of a mess, but it's kind of fun. So that was episode 30, if you're interested. Otherwise, you can head to YouTube and catch older episodes, and there's more than 6 you can catch all the way from episode number 1 on YouTube with fun visuals. And we are on Facebook and Instagram, AZZZMR.4ZZZ on the social media. Sometimes I go there and put things on the internet, mostly pictures of my cat, Coco, doing stuff, normal Coco stuff, such as lying next to or under whatever ASMR triggers I've had in an episode. It's fine, everything's fine. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to be reading a little bit from the Moreton Bay Courier. It eventually became the Courier Mail, but these newspaper articles are from about, 150-ish years ago, and they're really interested in things like, the price of flour and ships with news from ye old England, which I think that's what we're going to be reading about tonight. Just some articles from so long ago that they're just not going to impact us at all in our lives, which is quite calming, I think. Also tonight, we'll be looking at a recipe for cherry pie. Cherry pie. That comes from a one-piece recipe book that my brother got me. So that's going to be fun. I don't know if I'll be cooking that one, just because it seems like a bit of work and I'm a little bit lazy, but we're going to read about it anyway, so if you want to make the cherry pie, well, you might just have to pause it a bunch of times. Also tonight, we're going to be building a Zen garden that I bought off the internet. So there's going to be some sand raking sounds and some sand pouring sounds and some sand brushing sounds, I guess. It's going to be very soothing, I hope. I hope that it will be quite soothing and help put you to sleep. And after that, we'll just have some gentle piano. Just the usual. Some gentle piano. Just to help you drift off to sleep tonight after all the sand swooshing noises. It also comes with like little ornaments and stuff. And I don't know, a woody bass. There's going to be some sounds. Just some Zen garden swooshing sounds. And then piano. And then you will be asleep. I hope you will be asleep. So thanks for tuning in tonight to AZMR episode number 32. And let's get stuck in to reading some of the Moreton Bay Courier. This excerpt comes from the Moreton Bay Courier, Saturday, December 10, 1853. Latest news. The city of Melbourne steamed up the river yesterday afternoon. The city of Melbourne is a boat. It's all italics. So. The city of Melbourne steamed up the river yesterday afternoon, bringing us Sydney papers to Monday last, and news from Victoria to the 30th ultimo. The intelligence thus received is unusually bare of interest. All the English mails and arrears of colonial papers being in some of the sailing vessels. We extract such particulars as appear of interest. Flour remained at £27 for fine. Can't quite read that word. And £25 for seconds. The regular mails with the English news not having yet been received, we have been indebted to a friend for the home news of September 8th, a copy of which chanced to be forwarded by the Iron Prince, another boat, and furnished us with the European intelligence elsewhere published. The Sydney Legislative Council was to assemble on the day after the departure of the city of Melbourne. News by the Iron Prince. The screw steamer Iron Prince arrived from Sydney on Sunday. The Tucson had brought to Sydney English news to 8th September and had sailed again, as had also the Great Britain. Parliament had been prorogued by commission to the 27th of October. The speech on the occasion mentioned the earnestness with which France aided Her Majesty in endeavouring to settle the Eastern question. That matter, however, was still undecided. The Queen had been to Ireland, where she stayed 2 days, delighting by her manners all well-affected people there. Her visit was a complete ovation, and her reception most enthusiastic. Mr. Dargan, the great Dublin contractor, who had declined a knighthood and a baronetcy offered by Her Majesty, was distinguished by peculiar marks of the royal favour. On the way to the castle, Her Majesty called at Mr. Dargan's private residence, but he was not at home. Next day he was presented to the Queen, who received him most cordially, with a hearty shake of the hand, and Her Majesty took an opportunity of again calling at his house when he was not from home. The Queen visited the marine residence of the Earl of Howth and went twice to the exhibition. Prince Albert held a review in the Phoenix Park. The royal party had returned to Holyhead and proceeded thence to Scotland. In answer to a question from Sir J. Packington, Mr. F. Peel had said that Her Majesty's government had under consideration the orders in council affecting pastoral leases. The whole question was likely to be decided before territorial control was conceded to the colonists. It also oozed out that the government intended to give the colonists the right of fixing the upset price of land. Yellow fever was raging at New Orleans. The deaths amounted to 200 daily. It was still rumoured that the Duke of Newcastle was to be Governor-General of India, in which case Sir William Molesworth would go to the Colonial Office. A true bill had been found against the Right Honorary Mayor Beresford and 7 others for conspiring to bribe the electors of Derby. The trial was to take place in the Court of Queen's Bench. The obituary contains the following distinguished names: General Sir Charles Napier, General Sir Frederick Adam, General Lord Selton, Colonel Hawker, the Earl of Warwick, the Prince of Eekmul, Lord Ruthven, and the Earl of Seafield. Lord Saltone commanded the light companies of the Guards at Waterloo and earned the approbation and lasting esteem of the late Duke of Wellington by his heroic defence of Hougoumont. Great apprehensions were entertained of a scarcity of wheat in Europe. The Emperor of the French had fixed the price of the 4-pound loaf at a maximum of about 8 pence. This interference with trade caused much dissatisfaction elsewhere. On the 19th of August, the Emperor of Austria was betrothed to the Princess Elizabeth of Bavaria. The arrangement appears to have originated in love at first sight. The Emperor met the Princess at a ball, and being pleased with her manner and appearance, requested a few minutes' conversation, which, being granted, His Majesty immediately afterwards introduced her to the company as the future Empress of Austria. The marriage of the Duke of Brabant, son of King Leopold of Belgium, had taken place with the Archduchess Maria of Austria. In the New York exhibition, several pistols of the times of Elizabeth, Charles I, and Cromwell have been exhibited, which are made with several barrels each, and to turn round in the stock, thus showing that the invention of revolvers is much more ancient than was supposed. An old man named Richard Camden, who had been for more than 36 years a prisoner for debt, was recently brought before the Court of Queen's Bench, praying for his discharge. He had been first committed to a jail in Wales in 1817, whence he was removed to the Old Fleet prison and subsequently to the Queen's Bench, where he had since remained. He had been requested and was again asked to file his schedule and take relief under the Insolvency Act, but this he positively refused to do, claiming his discharge as a right. His application was opposed on the ground that the debt was still unsettled, and he was remanded to prison. The Count of Paris and Prince Robert of Orleans, grandsons of the late Louis Philippe, were travelling in Ireland. Lord Campbell, Chief Justice of England, appears to have made himself highly popular in Ireland as a landed proprietor. Having purchased an estate in Connaught, he recently paid a visit to it and was received in the most flattering manner. He entertained the farmers and other tenantry at a public dinner, having by his side the parish priest, who proposed his lordship's health in a speech replete with good feeling. Lord Campbell, in returning thanks, expressed his determination to study the welfare and happiness of his tenantry, never to interfere with their religion or their votes, and to avoid the galling system of evictions so prevalent in the country. It was stated that a rich auriferous vein had been found in Wales, 5 fathoms below the surface of the ground. A public meeting had been held at the London Tavern in honour of Mrs. Chisholm, who was about to return to Australia. £900 was subscribed on the spot towards a testimonial to be presented to this lady. Lord Elphinstone, formerly Governor of Madras, was to be Governor of Bombay. The Honourable James Thomason, Lieutenant Governor of the Northwest Provinces, was to be Governor at Madras. Some members of the medical profession had combined for the purpose of starting an anti-advice gratis society, the precise object of which is stated to be the organisation of the profession against all unpaid or ill-paid hospital, poor law, and army and navy appointments. A terrible accident occurred at the Crystal Palace at Sydenham on the 15th of August. While a gang of workmen were engaged upon the roof of the building, a portion of the woodwork gave way, and from 18 to 20 men fell to the ground, a distance of 120 feet. 9 of the unfortunate men were immediately picked up dead, 1 lived for a few minutes only, and 8 were removed to the hospital, where 2 had since died, and 2 more were in a hopeless state. 2 valuable horses were crushed by the falling mass, which weighed about 25 tons. The Times has been officially prohibited throughout the Spanish dominions, about the greatest compliment that could be paid to that journal. The notorious Lola Montez is again married. Her choice this time is the editor of a Californian newspaper. Nothing positive was yet known respecting the new governor of Victoria. It was said that Sir Charles Fitzroy was to remain in this colony for 2 years longer, as it was not thought prudent to remove him at the time when the Colonel Secretary was also leaving the colony. The Maitland Mercury states that the steamer New Orleans had paid a visit to the Hunter. Domestic intelligence. London wool sales. We select the following from some of the sales reported in our files per City of Melbourne. by J.T. Sims & Co. July 30, Scott over Moreton Bay. 16 bales at 25. There's a lot of numbers now that I can't fully read all of them, so I might skip that bit. But it's just talking about wool sales, I think. Meat. A private letter from a reliable source in Sydney and dated December 5th says that fat sheep were during the preceding week sold to the butchers at 30 shillings each, and that mutton was selling at 8 pence and 9 pence per pound. The quotation in the newspapers, however, is 4 pence to 6 pence, but whether retail or not is not stated. New store. We understand that a contract has been entered into by Messrs. J and G Barras for the construction of a large stone store at the waterside at North Brisbane, below the steam saw mills. In connection with the store, a commodian's wharf is to be constructed, capable of affording accommodation for large vessels. The Colonel Secretary, the Honourable E. Dees Thompson, having taken his passage for England in the Vimeria, a meeting was to be held at the Sydney Exchange Rooms on Tuesday last to consider the propriety of presenting a testimonial to that talented and deserving officer. The Countess again, Messrs. Montefiore, Graham and Co. have published a letter in a local paper, still harping upon Cleveland and the wreck of the Countess of Derby. The writers accuse us of endeavouring to make it appear that the South was the proper entrance for Cleveland, along the report that has caused so much comment, distinctly stating that the vessel came in there instead of the usual entrance at Cape Moreton. We utterly deny being influenced by any animus, and as Messrs. Montefiore and Co. charge us with being Jesuitical, we can only say that their suspicions are exceedingly mosaical. Mail communication. The August mails by the Vimeria and the September mails by the Tucson are still due in Brisbane. Although the Iron Prince left Sydney several days after the arrival of the last of these mails, neither of them was dispatched by that steamer. We have thus no mail communication from England later than July last. 5 months without letters. Steam communication with England has not done much for Moreton Bay. Indecency. William Carr was yesterday charged at the police office with having indecently exposed his person at South Brisbane and was sentenced to a month's imprisonment in default of paying a fine of £5. Constable Cronk proved the offence, and it appeared that the prisoner had been repeatedly complained of for similar crimes, though not before brought up to the police officer. Under these circumstances, his sentence was much too lenient. Gold discovery. Something. On Wednesday afternoon, a meeting of the subscribers to this land was held in the Brisbane Exchange Room for the purpose of arranging in what manner the amount subscribed for the discovery of gold should be offered to the public. The meeting was well attended by most of the influential persons in town, and Mr. James Hibben was called to the chair and announced that the reward for the discovery of gold now amounted to £2,800, with every probability that amount being increased. It was then resolved that the subscription list be published in the local newspapers for 3 months. The following committee were nominated, viz. Messrs. Turner, Cranes, B. Cribb, Powers, Swan and Davidson, which committee was invested with power to appoint another gentleman in place of either of the trustees, who tonight be unavoidably absent when the discovery of gold was made known. A vote of thanks was given to the chairman and the meeting separated. Geological Survey. Mr. Stutchbury, the government geologist, is expected in town in a few days, having left the Downs and crossed the range for the purpose of coming down by one of the eastern creeks. Gander. Mr. Joseph Biscoe has been appointed Clerk of Petty Sessions at Gander. Wool. The latest reports of the wool market were very favourable. The Home News of the 8th of September says that the anticipations of a fall generally entertained at the commencement of the August sales were disappointed, as the sales closed at an advance of 1 to 1.5 as compared with the commencement. New South Wales and Victoria wools first quality are quoted at 2 shillings to 2 shillings 4 in London as the range for September. Insubordination. John Davidson, engineer of the steamer Iron Prince, was on Tuesday charged at the police office by the captain of that vessel with insolent and insubordinate conduct during the passage of the steamer from Sydney. The offence was proved, and the defendant was sentenced to 30 days' imprisonment. Extracts. The Yellow Fever at New Orleans, from the Home News, September 8. In this country we have so long been mercifully exempted from the worst extremities of pestilence that we are scarcely competent to appreciate its true horrors. With the exception of the sequel to the Irish famine, it is nearly 2 centuries since these islands have experienced a really great plague, and we may read with awe and thanksgiving of the sufferings of others. Of the recent examples of these visitations, we remember none more frightful than that now placed before our eyes by the reports from New Orleans. Most readers will be aware that New Orleans is always and emphatically the city of the plague, and indeed it deserves the title far better than either Constantinople or Cairo. The autumn of every year is invariably sickly, and this sickness every 3 or 4 years assumes the features of a moral pestilence. On the present occasion it has exceeded the horrors of any former period, nor could we indeed venture upon transcribing the whole details before us without some risk of giving public offence by descriptions so revolting. Such is the notoriety of the New Orleans climate, that the unacclimated, or, in other words, those who have not passed through the probation of a fever, are considered as a distant class of the population, with liabilities peculiarly their own. It is thought, indeed, that a sickness of this kind acts like a natural vaccination, and secures at least a probable immunity from the like risks in future. When, therefore, estimates are taken of the public health in the fever season of New Orleans, it is customary to compute the percentage of deaths not upon the entire number of inhabitants, but upon the unacclimated only. Now, the unacclimated population of New Orleans is reckoned at about 30,000, and this number upwards of 3,000 had died up to the latest report since the beginning of June, so that the mortality for a period of 2 months has been 10%, a rate which, if continued for a year, would carry off nearly 2 souls out of every 3. That the duration of the pestilence will be so great is not apprehended, for the limits of the fever season are generally reached in the 1st or 2nd week of October. But on the other hand, the 2 months of its course yet to run are the most deadly of all. At this moment, indeed, the deaths are 200 daily, in a population reckoning as above, not half so large as that of Brighton, and if this mortality is maintained throughout the season, 15,000 out of 30,000 will have perished. In fact, the local journals are actually beginning to speculate upon the subsidence of the plague from the premature exhaustion of its material. The New Orleans Delta calculates that 15,000 people must have taken the fever already and have either died or recovered, so that no more than the same number of unacclimated persons would remain, which at the present, and it cuts off there, so we will never know what happens with the pestilence in New Orleans in 1853. Unless, I guess, we Google. I think I might leave it there for tonight, just so we can get moving on the next segment. I'm not sure how long I've been talking for, but I feel like it's been a while. So let's get moving on to the next bit of the show, I think. But thanks for tuning into AZMR tonight, and we've just been reading part of the Moreton Bay Courier from 1853. For the next part of the show, I'm going to be reading a recipe from One Piece Pirate Recipes by Sanji. Over 40 recipes for life on the high seas. My brother got me this recipe book because I really like One Piece, so it's pretty cute. It's just a bunch of recipes of things they make either on the show or in the manga. I think mostly in the manga, because there's little cutouts on each page of like where it relates to what chapter. And it says on the back, you can't become king of the pirates on an empty stomach. Monkey D. Luffy has defeated dozens of rival pirates, and that kind of success takes a whole lot of energy. Fortunately, the pirate cook Sanji stands by Luffy's side, ready to support his captain with flaming hot kicks and piping hot meals. Hearty and filling, Sanji's recipes are just what you need to find the strength to achieve your goals. We've gone to the section titled Refreshing Desserts. These are just for my loves. After you've had a filling meal, you gotta finish up with a dessert, right? Here's a lineup of sweets to capture the hearts of those you love, from simple examples to elaborate creations. Once you can make these, you're leading a charmed life. So today I'm going to be reading out the recipe for Mocktown cherry pie, which actually wasn't created by Sanji in the manga, but it's got the manga moment. In the bar in Mocktown, where the crew stops to find information on the Sky Island, Luffy sits next to a man eating the same items off the menu. Yet they have the exact opposite reaction to each thing. Will this difference in taste lead to a Rivalry from Volume 24, Chapter 223. This cherry pie is so good I could die, says Teach. This cherry pie is so bad I could die, says Luffy. Mogtown cherry pie, a handmade tart with fruit on top. Ingredients: makes a pie 8 1/4 inches or 21 centimeters across. Dough: half a cup 60 grams of cake flour, half a cup 60 grams of bread flour, roughly 3 3/4 tablespoons or 80 grams of salted butter, 2 teaspoons 10 grams of milk, half an egg, 3 3/4 teaspoons 15 grams of granulated sugar, dusting flour as needed. Custard cream: 2 egg yolks, 4 tablespoons plus 2 teaspoons 65 grams of granulated sugar, 2 teaspoons 10 grams of cornstarch, 2 teaspoons 10 grams of cake flour, 1 cup 230 ml of milk, 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, roughly 1 1/2 tablespoons 20 grams of salted butter, 18 Bing cherries. I'm not sure what a Bing cherry is, but it looks like you could either get fresh or you could get like canned if you want. I'm sure whatever's available to you. You'd want them to be pitted though, so maybe just get the canned ones. Steps: 1. Make dough. Mix and sift cake flour and bread flour. Cut butter into 1/3 inch 1 centimeter squares and place both into the refrigerator. Put milk, egg, and granulated sugar into a bowl and mix well, then place in refrigerator. 2. Place butter into the dough bowl and use a dough scraper or pastry blender to crumble and mix it in. Pour egg liquid from step 1 in and use a spatula or similar tool to mix. Then wrap in baking sheet or plastic wrap and let sit in the refrigerator for 30 to 60 minutes. Step 3. Place dough mixture on a parchment sheet, then place another baking sheet on top. Use a rolling pin to flatten dough until it is larger than your pie tin. Step 4. Pack dough firmly into pie tin. Dust a fork with flour and use it to score the entire rim. Cut excess dough from rim with a knife and use fork to poke about 10 holes in the bottom. Place a baking sheet on top and weigh down with pie weights. Step 5. Preheat oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit or 200 degrees Celsius and bake for 10 to 15 minutes. Remove pie weights. Lower oven to 355 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius and bake another 15 minutes. Place on cooling rack. Step 6. In a pot on medium-low heat, whisk milk, granulated sugar, cornstarch, and cake flour. Mix well. Turn on heat and stir until it begins to thicken. Remove from heat. Add butter and lemon juice, then stir until it becomes smooth. Once it has cooled a bit, pour into pie crust. Step 7. Remove stems from Bing cherries. Okay, I guess Bing cherries are fresh cherries. Okay. Remove stems from Bing cherries. Cut in half and remove pits. Arrange on top of custard cream, then chill in the refrigerator. That's it. That's the whole recipe for Mocktown cherry pie. In the picture, the cherries don't look like they've been halved. So maybe what they did is they just cut them in half, halfway to remove the pits, and then just left them kind of loosey-goosey, kind of whole but cut, if that makes sense. Okay, that seems delicious. The problem with these recipes is I always want to make them myself to see how they go, but then I'm like, I want to make them in an ASMR way, and then I realize how much work that would be to set up microphones in my kitchen, and I'm just unsure. I'm still medium sure that I will try one day, but I don't know when that is. So we'll see. We'll see, everybody. We'll see. So I'm going to move on with this show, and what we're doing now is we're going to be building a little Zen garden. I purchased a Zen garden from the internet, and first up it came with a little woody tray. Looks like it's made of bamboo. It's got a little rim, and it's about 15 centimeters wide by 25 centimeters long. That's just a guess. I could be way off, but I'm usually pretty right with measurements. It's a nice woody base. I also have a bag that contains 3 smaller bags of white sand. There is a tiny little tree on a little woody circle, and the tree's got pink flowers. I wonder if it will make a brushy sound. It's making a vaguely brushy sound. Guess it's a little tougher than a normal brush because of the little tiny tree branches. I also have a tiny bag of rocks. They don't rattle very well because the bag is very full. We didn't really listen to the sand. So I'm going to grab a sand bag. I have a brush, a little brush. Well, it's kind of not so little, but I wonder what this is for. It's a very soft brush. There's also a tiny little wooden rake. The rake is a little bit wonky. Not all the rakey bits are the same length, and some of them are a bit crooked, but I think it will work just fine for our purpose. We also have another little bag of miscellaneous stuff. Let's have a little look at what's inside. Combination of little ornaments in here. let's have a little look at what's inside, even though I can see through the baggie, but anyway. First up, there's a green lump. It's like a kind of, I don't know. It feels like a piece of foam wrapped in like fuzzy green stuff, and it's maybe like, I don't know, a fuzzy green rock. It's like grassy, but doesn't have any particular shape. It's just a lump. It's just a lump. I really like how this one feels and sounds, but we should move on. What else have we got in the miscellaneous bag? The next thing from the miscellaneous bag is a small ornament, like kind of like a little lantern. One of those like pagoda lanterns, which has a little stand and a little roof. But yes, it's a mini pretend lantern. Feels not super heavy, but not super light. I think not very helpful description. I think it's made of solid plastic, so it's got a little bit of weight because it's definitely not hollow, but not like a stone. It's got kind of a rough texture on the outside, like it's been purposely scuffed up to look old. Yes, it's a little mini pagoda lantern. What else is in the goodie bag? There's a little stone talisman. It's got writing in it that I don't understand. Writing on it. It's black with gold, kind of edged writing, characters, but it almost doesn't feel heavy enough to be an actual stone. So I wonder if this too is plastic. definitely sounds quite plasticky. We also have in the little miscellaneous bag something else that's wrapped in bubble wrap. Very small bubble wrap. Very small bubbles. I wonder how they pop. Kind of hard to pop them because they're so small. I'm not sure why this was in the bubble wrap. So I'm not sure 100% why this one was wrapped in its own special bubble wrap, because it's also just plastic. I thought it might be made of something a little more delicate, but it's, feels like solid plastic, but it's still definitely plastic, and it is a tiny little bridge, a tiny little bridge. It's got some nice little edge details on the side and little steps. I like the little stair sounds. So the stairs go up to the middle and then down the other side. It's a little platform across the middle, a little landing on the top of the bridge. The little bridge is very fun to play with. I also have this extra box. Which has some additional tools that are plastic. So there's another little rake, which is a similar sort of shape to the other one, but it's a bit more symmetrical because it's not wood, it's plastic. This one sounds a lot smoother, raking the microphone. I think the other one had little woody bits that were getting caught on the foam. Hold on. That was the woody rake. And that was the plastic rake. Which one do you like better? Do you like the crunchy sounds? Or do you like the smooth plastic sounds? They're both very different, but visually they look very, very similar, just made of different things. They've both got 4 rake prongs, but there is another plastic rake that has 8 rake prongs, and this one is similar except the rake handle is on one side, so it's like L-shaped. These ones seem to be a bit more pointy than the other rake. There's also, I can only describe it as a smooth rake. So all the rakes have consisted of a long handle with like a cylinder straight across the top, and then the rake prongs come out of that cylinder. This one does not have any rake prongs, so I guess when we're pushing the sand around, it will just leave little smooth paths through the sand. So it's a bit more slidey than rakey or brushy. Also in the box we have a little shovel. The handle has been made to look like bamboo, which none of the other tools have, but it's still just plastic. But it's a little shovel for shoveling sand, I guess. Next up we have one that's just a single prong. It's just a little flat, but then tapers to a point. I guess it's flat for easy holding at one end, because I can easily hold it with my thumb and fingers, but then it's got a pointy end. And last, I have a rake that looks a little bit more like a traditional rake. So it's got a handle, and then the prongs come out from it. in like a fan shape, and there's a crossbar across the end. So, yeah, there's 5 prongs, but they fan out. There's so many parts. I feel like most of this episode is just unboxing the Zen Garden ingredients. Okay, now that that's all unboxed, I guess we should put it together. So the first step is gonna be the messiest, and that's we're gonna just pour out all the sand. I wonder if I'm going to come to regret this with all the sand being everywhere. That's baggie number 1. Baggie number 1. Okay. Time for baggie number 2. Baggie number 2. Now, last baggie number 3. And that's all the baggies of sand. It's very, very white and sparkly. I would not be surprised if it were not real sand, if it were just like plastic bits. But anyway. going to use my no pronged rake, just the smooth one, to just push it out to the edges, because right now the sand's kind of in a heap in the middle of the little tray, the little bamboo tray. Feels like quite a lot of sand. I feel like probably didn't need 3 baggies, maybe 2 would have been sufficient, but I guess there's a bit of depth if you want to go digging. So now it's all spread out and it's kind of smooth somewhat. It's still a bit hilly. It's not perfectly spread, but it's pretty good. We're gonna put some little ornaments down. Actually, maybe I should I'm going to do a rake with my woody rake just before we put anything down, I think. Just give it a little full-on rake. Now going to use my fanned rake, which looks a little bit more like a normal rake. Now I'm gonna push. I think I like that rake better. Now I'm just gonna move the sand around a bit with my shovel, my mini shovel. Okay, I'm just gonna try all the different rakes now in the sand. I'll just try all the different rakes now. Going to start up with just the little woody rake, the woody rake. Now the plasticky rake, that's the same as the woody rake with the four prongs, Next, I'll use the smooth rake, the one that's just a bar, the smooth rake. Now the 8-prong rake. Now the fan rake. just the single prong, the single prong. Now I'm going to use the brush. Oh, the brush sounds really good. The brush sounds good. Okay. Now that it's been randomly raked, I'm going to start populating it with all the little ornaments. Going to start with the little bridge. I'm going to put it about in the middle. Wiggle. Next I'm going to pop the tree down. And I'm going to pop the rocks either side of the river. I think. Okie dokie. Now I'm going to pop my little fuzzy green thing in. And my little lantern thingy. And my little rock with the little talisman symbol thingy. And that's all. That's all my Zen garden. There's still a bit of room for raking in the sides. And I had a really cute time building it. Took way less time to put it together than it took to tell you about and unbox all the things from it. So that's a bit cute. And it's very soothing to play with too, and to just like randomly rake or do little patterns, or all one direction, or I don't know, it's very cute. So I'm gonna continue to enjoy my Zen garden, and I'm gonna make a bunch more raking noises, which will just transition into some gentle piano, just some gentle piano, just to help you drift off to sleep tonight. Thank you for tuning in to AZMR on Zed Digital tonight, and good night, 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 good night.